welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Bookmas, and I was doing a little bit of pre-planning for some Bookmas. I was looking at my top 10 and my top flops for the years, my faves and my flops I was calling them. There was a particular book series that I kind of wanted to do an honorable mention in my favorites, but none of them really made it into the top 10. So I thought it's still gonna get a little shout out in my favorites, but I wanted to actually just kind of do a review of this, universe as a whole. There are 5 books in total, 3 in an original trilogy and then 2 in a spin-off duology. I think it deserves a lot of hype. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, really fun, and just in general, I don't really see it talked about as much. So that's what I thought I'd do a little review for it, a little spoiler-free review. I've never really done dedicated sit-down reviews. It's something I want to work on doing a bit more in 2026. So why not kick it off at the end of 2025 with a series that I've read all in this year. Well, bar one book, which I've got on hold from my library, so I haven't quite finished it, but I've read all of them this year and really enjoyed them. So what a lovely way to finish off the year by hyping up some books that I really enjoyed. And that series is called the Jane Austen Murder Mysteries, and these are by Tirzah Price. This is a 3-book trilogy. This contains the books Pride and Premeditation, Sense and Second-Degree Murder, and Manslaughter Park. These are, as you could probably guess, Jane Austen retellings. These are YA Regency murder mysteries, all that follow a very similar plot to the original Jane Austen books, but they all do differ. They are not romance focused, although some of Jane Austen's aren't overly romance focused, but they are not. The romance is definitely a secondary part. The main part is a murder mystery, and I really enjoyed them. And then the other 2 books are a spin-off from the first book, and it is a Lizzie and Darcy murder mystery. This is In Want of a Suspect and A Matter of Murder, I think it's called. That last one literally came out, I think it was in November. It's on hold at the moment from my library because I've listened to all of these on audiobooks, so I will be getting to it. The author did actually share a reading order, so I'll pop it up here. Hopefully I can find the graphic, but if I remember correctly, it was Pride and Premeditation, Sense and Second-Degree Murder, and then In Want of a Suspect, and then go back to Manslaughter Park. And I would also say, if you want to read Manslaughter Park but want to read the others as well, definitely go in order, because Lizzie and Darcy, who are from Pride and Premeditation, do make appearances in both of the other 2 books in this trilogy. Let's get into some thoughts. So yeah, I, first of all, would just want to say this is a huge recommendation. However, if you do not like Regency, YA, or murder mystery, it's not a recommendation. Like those things, this is what the series is. So yeah, definitely not a recommendation for that. But if any of those kind of things tickle your fancy, I really recommend them. You absolutely don't have to read the original kind of source material to enjoy these books. I do think sometimes that it does add an element of enjoyment if you have some of the characters, and the way that the author has decided to adapt the storyline around those characters is really fun and interesting, and it definitely adds a kind of element of enjoyment when you know who that character is in the original text, but you don't have to read the original text. Can you see that he's just like biting me? It doesn't hurt, he's just like holding onto my thumb. Why are you doing that, sir? I'm trying to film. You're on camera, but you need to put your best face forward. I think the author really used her creativity in adapting some of these storylines into a kind of fun murder mystery element. And she definitely also does take some liberties with what women would be able to kind of get away with or be able to do in this time frame. Specifically with Lizzie and her career aspirations wouldn't have been necessarily possible in the time frame that the book's set. The book set is set in roughly the same period that they were originally written in. But I really like that kind of creative freedom was taken, because obviously Jane Austen was writing about a time that she was living in, whereas when you're writing about something from like 200 years past, with the knowledge of what you can do now at 200 years, why not adapt it slightly? It's a murder mystery anyway, so like it has that kind of like a bit more, like it's not a 100% realistic depiction of what England would have been like in the time frame, but I think it works fine for the books, and I think I really enjoyed that added element. So let's start with Pride and Premeditation, as it is the first book in the trilogy. This book follows Lizzie, and she works for her dad's solicitor company, and she has the aspiration to become a lawyer / I think barrister, but this is something that isn't done at this time for women. It's not possible. Her dad, however, is willing to give her a little bit of a chance, and kind of says to kind of prove herself worthy of this position. So she decides that she is going to find a case and solve the case to prove her dad that she knows what she's doing and that she is up for the task of joining his business. So she finds a case, I think she just finds it in the newspaper. It's about a young man who has been accused of a murder, and that is Mr. Bingley, who has been maybe wrongfully or rightfully accused of the murder of his brother-in-law. She decides to go to the jail to meet Mr. Bingley and to offer herself up for his case. When she gets there, when she's doing this, however, she runs into Mr. Bingley's friend, Mr. Darcy. Mr. Darcy wants Lizzie nowhere near the case. However, she is not going to let that stop her, and she ends up trying to help solve this murder. Her and Darcy end up getting entangled along the way, and they end up kind of like unraveling this kind of even bigger conspiracy plot that ended up being quite bigger than either of them initially thought. They're thrown together. You see their kind of relationship kind of develop. Again, romance is really not a big part of the story, but it is there sprinkled throughout as this kind of very light budding relationship develops between the two. So this is the only one that has the spin-off duology at the moment, and those those books kind of just follow Lizzie and Darcy further on past this original case, as they are both kind of like going down a completely new separate case, also both while trying to have their own careers and also this kind of relationship with each other. You do have to, I don't know why you wouldn't, but you do have to read Pride and Premeditation before reading In Want of a Suspect, but I really liked In Want of a Suspect, really enjoyed where it went, really can't wait to get my library hold and listen to the final book in that duology. So moving on to Sense and Second Degree Murder, this follows the Dashwood sisters, as at the beginning of the book, the oldest one, Eleanor, comes across her dad's dead body. They believe this is an accident. This is kind of quite tragic for the sisters because they, as women, are not entitled to any of their dad's estate or his business. The second sister, Marianne, wants to take over their dad's business, which is a PI company, but they know they can't do this as they are women, and so everything their dad basically had goes to their half-brother, his firstborn son, and who they don't have the best relationship with, and he ends up kind of turning them out of their house with their mum. They end up getting like a very small house in town where they have to live together. However, they kind of start to suspect that their dad's death was not in fact an accident, and together the three of them end up deciding that they are going to uncover this murder. They don't really tell their mum or anything about it, so they're kind of just doing it by themselves. The youngest one, I can't remember her name, and she's quite young, so she's not as involved, but this book is split between Eleanor and Marianne's POVs, and Eleanor is into science, I think it was, or into like apothecary, and so together they end up kind of trying to figure out who killed their father, if that was in fact he was killed, looking into his old clients. Along the way they run into two different men who are going to be the love interests. Again, it's a smaller part, but it is a really nice element to the story, and they end up kind of helping them along the way. This actually, I found there was some hijinks that the three of them end up getting into that are quite wild in this book, but I ended up really enjoying it. I thought it was quite fun, and I think out of the original trilogy, this book was potentially my favorite. I think that's probably due to the big sibling dynamic that there is in it. The three sisters get along well, but they also do have they bump heads a lot, but they're all also going through this kind of shared grief of losing their father and trying to support each other while also trying to uncover this murder. So I really liked the sibling dynamic in it and how they've got each other's back. This book also does have a tie-in with the first book. Lizzie, I can't remember if Darcy does, but Lizzie does make an appearance in this book. It's only brief, so you could go into the second book without having read that. Again, if you're going to read them, I'd start at the beginning, but you could do that if you are particularly a fan of Sense and Sensibility. I really enjoyed the sibling relationship. I really enjoyed, again, how kind of, I guess, modern these women, young women are as characters. They all have their own kind of bigger aspirations than the time, with Marianne wanting to be a PI, Eleanor wanted to be a scientist, and the youngest one, she really is into writing, and so she kind of brings that kind of into the plot and helping out with this story. And our third and final book is Manslaughter Park, and this is the book that definitely divulges the furthest, I think, from the source material. Now, I will say Mansfield Park is my least favourite of Jane Austen's original novels, and so I actually really enjoyed the changes that the author made for this series. I won't say in particular what they are because I think it's good to go in without that in mind, but this basically follows Fanny as she is living with her cousin's family, and her uncle ends up turning up dead, and she believes it's foul play involved, kind of like a similar to the second one. So she again decides that she is going to go out on her own and try and figure out this. She's tried to kind of express to some of her cousins that she thinks their dad was murdered. They don't really believe her, so she is going to figure out herself. I believe she's really into art, and her uncle had a art gallery and was kind of really showing interest in her art, so they have like that bond over that, so she feels really like passionate about trying to solve this injustice. Now, along the way, actually in this one, Lizzie and Darcy end up playing quite a significant part as lawyers. Like, she kind of goes to them, or they get involved in an advice way, but they also come into play quite heavily in the conclusion of this book. So again, a good idea to read that one first if you're interested. But yeah, I think out of the original three, this was my least favorite. I still really enjoyed it, but yeah, I think that was also just because I guess maybe the original novel is probably one of my least favorites, although I actually quite preferred Fanny in this book. I didn't like Fanny necessarily in Manslaughter Park. Maybe I need to reread it and give it a second chance. But yeah, this one definitely has the biggest tie-in with the first book. And I will say, in Want of a Suspect, which is the first book in the duology, the Dashwood sisters make an appearance. Again, in quite a fun, like, in a massive scenario kind of way. Overall, this is a book series, a book trilogy, and at least the first of a duology that I have absolutely loved this year. I'm really happy that I found it. And it's a genre that I think I really want to delve more into, in like more, I guess, Regency murder mystery stuff. I've been reading through some of Poirot's stuff, which isn't really Regency, but it is still like 100 years ago. So like older mystery stuff I think is like quite enjoyable, but I quite like this one necessarily because although it is set in like a Regency olden times, it has a modern day kind of perspective, and I think I quite enjoyed that. Although they are YA, because again, I think the characters are younger. I mean, they do read like YA, but they didn't feel childish a lot, because I think, again, the era it's set in, the characters are having to go through things that people of similar ages today wouldn't do, just because of the time it was set in. So like they're working, they're having to worry about money, and they don't really talk about education and stuff like that. So yeah, it has like those interesting points about it. I think the author seems really cool. I follow her on Instagram and she always is posting very cool stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of do a little video gushing about these books, maybe putting them on people's radars, at least if you wanted to check out the first one, if it's to see if this might be something is your style. It might not be, but they really worked for me. I really enjoyed them. I think I gave everything so far 4 stars across the board. They've all been really wins for me, and it's given me a new kind of genre niche that I think I want to look into a bit more, but it's definitely given me a new author that I will be keeping my eyes out in the future, see whatever else she posts. I'm curious to see if she's going to do adaptations of the other books. My favorite Jane Austen book is Persuasion, so I would be very interested in seeing a murder mystery version of that. But yeah, I'm here to listen to, potentially read what the author posts in the future. Definitely check it out and see how it is. So yeah, I'll leave all of the books linked, all the Goodreads linked down below, so you can check them out and maybe at least read them and see if they would potentially be your style. Some of them don't actually have the highest ratings on Goodreads, but that's sometimes what I think is like having maybe, you know, giving things a go that necessarily don't have the highest ratings, but because they might work for you. And this book series really worked for me this year. Has been great reading them. So yeah, just wanted to share. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you've made it this far, leave me the little mystery glass emoji. Just let me know you were here. I thank you so much for watching. I thank you. That was a weird way of saying that. Thank you so much for watching. I always really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you in a couple more days for more Bookmas. Bye.